Welcome to Expats Listen with Ryan and Liz, the podcast where we talk about the realities of living abroad and the dreams of what life could be in another place.
I'm Ryan, and I'm a South African that's living in Portugal.
And I'm Liz, a New Yorker also living in Portugal.
So, Liz, we are back in Portugal after almost 3 months on the road, visiting all of the countries in the UK, which was England, Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland. It was an incredible journey, and we learned so much. We got to see so much. And what are we talking about today?
Yeah, so because we spent that time, and I think that a lot of people do this, but we definitely do this. Whenever you spend a bit of time in another country, you say, could we live there?
I asked that question immediately. Like leaving the airport, I'm looking around, and any country, I'm thinking, I wonder what we could do to make this work. But we definitely asked that question about the UK.
And I think today we just wanted to talk about different categories of life and what we saw in the UK versus Portugal and what we would choose of where we think would be more livable.
Yeah, I would think after going through this, it might give us a really good idea of whether or not we actually want to move to the UK, because I think it's covering some of the most important things to us about what we would consider before potentially moving to a new place. So I'm looking forward to covering these things. What are we going to start off with?
Okay, well, Ryan and I really love food, so let's get started.
The most important thing, which is food.
With food.
So, in the UK?
Yeah, so in the UK, there are so many international options. I know that the UK gets a bad rap for food, but truly you can find food from everywhere in the whole world, especially when you're in a bigger city like London. It's really easy for you to find food from basically every country. And I think that's a really big pro.
Yeah, I agree. So you're able to actually have so many different cuisines from so many different places around the world. And not only is there that availability, you've also got options within those particular subcategories. So it's not just one Turkish place. It's not just one Italian pizza place. You can have so many different choices and variations of that food, which is super, super cool. Also, what a place to be if you love curry. And that's kind of my kryptonite. And so being able to have those kinds of choices everywhere there was really, really cool.
On the other hand, prices were out of this world. I will never understand how a burger in a pub should be like 25 euros. How? Why? No,
that's not really, that's terrible, if I'm honest. The prices that are being charged for general food in restaurants over there is way too much. And I'm saying this maybe because we're cheap, maybe we're broke in relative terms, and I can accept that fact. But I just don't think that there's a value connection between a very standard hamburger, even a good hamburger, and more than 20 euros.
Yeah.
And I find it really difficult to eat food that costs that much money and feel as though I'm getting a good deal, because I think it changes the taste of the food.
It's true.
Yeah, it's definitely a mental thing. But I think what that then leads us to is something that I think we're quite big fans of, and that is cooking at home. But even then, you are going to need to make certain compromises, because I felt as though in the UK, there were far fewer options for fruits and vegetables in the supermarkets. And even when you did get a few options, it was quite expensive for good quality fruit and good quality vegetables, did you find?
Yeah, I was actually really surprised by that. I think that we've gotten really spoiled in Portugal by how many fruits and vegetables are available at an affordable price. And going to the UK and just shopping for normal things. I really like to have yogurt with papaya in the morning, and I couldn't find papaya in most supermarkets. And if I could find a papaya, it cost a fortune. It cost more than a steak. So I wasn't going to buy that papaya. That wasn't an option for me anymore. So I really did feel like there was just a lot less choice there than what we've become used to.
Yeah, it is. I think it's a comparative thing. I think maybe if you're in the UK and you're accustomed to paying a lot of money for fruit, maybe it's not such a big deal. And maybe it's one of the things that inspire a lot of British tourists when they come here to just proclaim at the very loudest voice that they have how cheap everything is here. So maybe that's where it's coming from. I think I have to acknowledge the fact that I am spoilt by how we live here in terms of fruit and vegetables.
Another thing we noticed in the UK is that there were a ton of delivery options. So you could order basically anything from anywhere and get it delivered to wherever you were staying. And I think that was really kind of exciting for us until we saw the prices and realized that we couldn't afford delivery. But the options were definitely plentiful and were definitely there, which was really cool to see.
It really is something. I managed to spend some time with some of my closest mates out there, and we were talking about how the Amazon delivery services there sometimes get to you by the end of the same day that you've made your order, and that can be for groceries as well. And I just think that's really something, because here in Portugal, most of the time our Amazon orders are coming from Spain, and you generally need to factor in pretty much a week before it makes its journey to you and then gets handled by the Portuguese postal system, which adds another few days. And then the delivery will depend on whether or not it's a weekend, because if it's a weekend, someone's going to come by and say, yeah, we tried to actually deliver it even though you were standing at your front door, but we couldn't find you. So it'll have to come on Tuesday. And then full week later, you're getting your stuff. So I think being able to live in very much the first world over there, to have all the options to get your stuff immediately, was super cool, even though we didn't ever really use it.
And then the last thing about UK food is we noticed that the portions were actually really large, and you did get a bit more than one meal out of a lot of meals. So that is a nice thing that we saw, and really good quality overall. Whenever we did pay for restaurant food, it actually was really nice.
I think in bigger cities, there's often more competition between restaurants. And despite the fact that the prices are so high, there still needs to be some reason why I'm choosing your restaurant over someone else's. And I think adding to the portion size and making sure that the quality is really good is a big part of that competition. And I will say I really appreciate that. One of the things that I didn't appreciate so much were the quantities of chips given out with every single meal. I had no idea that the UK consumed as many and as much chips as they do. It was bags of potatoes.
Especially in Northern Ireland.
Ew.
We went to get fish and chips once, and the fish was a normal size, but the chips were maybe 14 potatoes per person worth of chips. And in Wales, it was the same. We had so many chips.
Yeah, these are not places, I think, for a low carb diet. And I think my waistline really paid the price for being offered that many chips. So yeah, what about Portugal, Liz? Yes. What about Portugal?
Yeah, so I think in general, there are less international options. In Lisbon itself, which is the capital, there are some more choices, and that's growing every year since we've been here. We've seen that. But overall, I do think that it's pretty limited in what you're able to get. Setúbal, our city, which is in the top 5 biggest cities in Portugal, just got its very first Thai restaurant. It opened last week, and Thai food is internationally known quite well. So for this to be the first Thai restaurant in the city ever is really showing you that there wasn't a big demand for it before.
Our city is pretty special when it comes to that, because it's growing and because there's more and more people opening up new and interesting things, which is a great thing. But where we are in our developmental space, I guess, is that we've got one of everything. So we have one ramen place, and it's great ramen, and I love it. There's like one top quality sushi place, and they make great sushi. There's one really amazing pizza place, Italian style pizza that we've got. Now we've got one Thai place.
Our one Lebanese place closed, and we're also sad.
It was so sad to watch that happen. The same happened to the Moroccan place. We had a Moroccan place that didn't make it. So like we're growing and we're trying, and it's so good to see it. And I know that in a few months, in a few years, there will be more options, but we don't really have the same kind of options that you have in the UK, which is sad. But I think another big part of it, though, is speaking about the diversity in the different places. The UK is naturally gifted in diversity by this point. And so you've got so much representation from different people from around the world making and selling their food, and it's so nice to be able to engage with cultures on that level. So I really like it.
It's true. I feel like even in the smallest places in the UK, there were still people from so many different countries, and exactly what you're saying, they bring their food.
No, very, very true. Then the other thing I think in Portugal, which is really awesome, and I only ever appreciate it once I spend time outside of Portugal, is that in Portugal, there are so many good fruit and veg options in supermarkets. So you're able to actually get access to such a wide variety of fruit that is organic, that is
and locally grown,
and it's seasonal, so you get to have fruit throughout the year and you get to enjoy that, and it's sold everywhere, and you can buy in different quantities. You can buy it on the side of the road, in fact, even. And I think that that's such a big thing that we didn't really notice until we left, and that was one thing. But then the other thing I think is that home cooking with more exotic spices and herbs isn't necessarily very well supported at this point in time. So you need to know very carefully where to go to get certain herbs and spices, because finding them at the supermarket isn't very easy.
Yeah, versus the UK, where there was a jarred sauce for every specific type of Indian curry. Here, you have to make it yourself, and you need to go to 3 different stores in order to get all of the spices that you need.
And I will even go so far as to say one of the things that we really appreciated and didn't even notice were the number of ethnic cuisine stores in the UK. So you would have the Romanian supermarket, you would have the Polish supermarket, you would have the Indian supermarket, you'd have the Asian supermarket, and all of those places have the things that come from that particular place, which means that you can make those things. I would assume that it's mainly for the population of people from those places. But I also like the idea that I could one day choose to make some cevapi and go to the local Serbian supermarket and pick up the right ingredients.
Yeah.
And it's nice to have that. And unfortunately in Portugal, that's still a growing thing. But it's cool though. I enjoy it.
Next up is that restaurants are at a price where even locals are going to restaurants on a regular basis. So it's not just expats who are coming in here with bigger salaries from other countries and going to restaurants all the time, but it's everyone in Portugal is going to restaurants much more frequently because the prices are in line with the salaries.
Yeah, I think it's close. I think it's very close. I think right now it's like on a razor's edge of affordability, and it's still good, but I can see it. I can feel that tension of people, I think at this point in time, really wincing to see the artisanal burger place charging €12 for a burger, and everyone kind of feeling as though it doesn't feel right, but still buying it. So I'm really nervous about that.
Me too.
But you're right. I think it's a lot better than the UK is.
And there still are burgers for €3 and for €4.
Yes.
And I think that that's the difference, that in the UK, we really never found those truly affordable places.
Well, you can go to like the chicken shops and you can go to the kebab shops for super cheap food, but I don't know if I would consider it a restaurant quality, restaurant level experience. The other thing to think about is that maybe when we spent that time in the UK, we weren't really accessing certain things that people who live there would be accessing. And that's just because of the context of our visit. True. So I don't want it to be some type of blanket statement that we're making on the state of the economy in the United Kingdom based on what my judgment is. It's just generally saying, from what it is that I saw, is that it's easier to live a more outdoorsy, visiting, restauranting, drinking life in Portugal than it is in the UK.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, all of that I have to ask, which do you choose? Food in the UK or food in Portugal?
I choose food in Portugal. And when I say that, I don't necessarily mean it in a convincing way for all of time, because I think I probably would have chosen the UK until maybe 2 years ago.
Wow.
Because up until 2 years ago, I did enjoy that part of going out and trying new and interesting cuisine and stuff. But now I think I've transitioned more into being happy to cook at home, being happy to try new recipes, being happy to make the food that I like for myself. And I think Portugal gives me more of those options, despite sometimes it being more difficult to get those ingredients and whatever else I need for that endeavor. But I'm able to do that a lot more here than I would be in the UK. What would you choose?
Yeah, so I'm also choosing Portugal, and it's a difficult decision though. I think that for me, I love the international options for eating food, and the fact that our entire country of Portugal doesn't have an Ethiopian restaurant yet. Like, oh, it hurts and I want it. And it's really nice to be able to just have different cuisine at your fingertips whenever you want it. Like Ryan, I also really enjoy cooking and I'm able to make what I want to make, and that's good. I really think what pushes it over the edge for me of choosing Portugal over the UK is the guilt that I feel spending that money to go to a restaurant in the UK is high. And just to know that when the two of us go out for dinner, it's going to be at least £50.
No, it was crazy. I don't know who's out there feeling fully comfortable spending that kind of money. If you've got that kind of money to spend, man, well done to you. Congratulations. I'm happy for your success. For me and other people who are, I guess, in a similar economic state as me, it's too much, man. It's too much. And I'm not out just saying we should protest anything or anything like that. I'm just saying I'm going to keep myself at home and I'm going to fry my egg and I'm going to put it on a piece of toast and I'm going to eat it and be very happy.
Yeah, which I think means that we actually eat better in Portugal because the food is more affordable and restaurants are more affordable. So we're able to go out a little bit more often and cook the things that we want at home.
Well, can I throw this out there? Because I think maybe it might be worth talking about just very quickly, is that as part of my change from being that excited about restaurants to being more excited about cooking at home is what it is that gets me excited about going to a restaurant now. And in Portugal, it's about eating fish.
Yeah.
And I'm not really that excited about too many other restaurants other than maybe the sushi place because I just love sushi. But I just think that going out and ordering a big fish cooked on a fire by some man who's been doing this for 50 years is such a treat. It's such a special occasion. It's such a luxurious experience. And you're paying real serious money for it, I guess, but certainly nothing too far off what we were paying for in the UK
for burgers.
For 2 burgers.
Yeah.
And I feel like having that experience, sitting out there in the sunshine, eating this enormously delicious fish with people that you care about and enjoying the fresh air is everything that I would want in a restaurant experience. And that's really what it is I'm looking for. Other than that, the only other thing that I really like I said, is sushi. But the other restaurant experience which I really like is the Chinese buffet down the road here because it's just ridiculous value and it's nice to just go there and gorge yourself on a buffet and then come home and feel sick. But in general, I just feel as though it depends on what it is that you're looking for from the restaurant experience.
I think in general, I'm looking for food that I couldn't cook myself.
Yeah.
So I am really excited by international cuisine that I've never heard of. I'm really excited by a dish that I know nothing about. I'm really excited by a flavor combination that I would have never thought to put together. And I love going to restaurants to experience that. And I think that you get more of that with a more diverse population and more diverse restaurants, which I really love. But am I really going to spend £40 to try a dish that I've never heard of? That's where I'm really held back
Yeah. Well, I guess once they start opening up more like Latvian and Mongolian and Turkmenistani restaurants here, maybe once that happens, we'll start going out more. And that makes complete sense to me. I get it.
All right, next up, let's talk about accommodation. And in both countries, there is a housing crisis. And really, it's not just Portugal and the UK. I think all over Europe, there is a housing crisis at the moment. And we are just seeing skyrocketing prices for tiny places everywhere. It's highly competitive. It becomes almost a full-time job trying to find an apartment. And hearing stories of your friends in London, hearing stories of people in the UK, hearing stories of a girl that we stayed with in Edinburgh, trying to find a place is cutthroat. It is difficult. It is expensive. It is filled with podcasts and podcasts worth of horror stories. And it's just difficult in both places.
Look, the housing crisis issue is everywhere, and it's really difficult to see. We spent that time in Northern Ireland, and it was pretty heartbreaking because TikTok, I think, figured out that that was where I was at and started showing me the local happenings in people's lives there. And there were so many videos of people looking into the camera, opening up envelopes, which had, what do you call them?
Eviction
notices. So landlords were saying, you now need to move out because we've got new tenants coming in, or we're upgrading, we're developing, whatever it might be, or they're selling. And therefore, these people who were making these videos were now, in effect, really homeless from whatever month they were going to get kicked out. And it was really so difficult to see because I understand the desperation of being in that situation, because it is desperate. You need to now get into this housing market, which is just not designed for anyone to really come right. And they're making this video, and I'm thinking, well, who's this for? I'm not taking the side of anyone because I think that it's difficult for everyone, if I'm honest with you. But like really thinking, how are we going to solve this?
Yeah.
And I'm sure there are a lot of people who have got very good ideas. I'm not qualified to have a real opinion on this because I don't really understand it maybe at the level that's required. But it really is quite a dark and dire place to be for so many people. And I think it's combined with the fact that the cost of living in the UK specifically, I would say, is so extreme. Because now you're getting into a situation where people are outbidding each other on crazy numbers. And in Portugal, I think it's more a case of there just being scarcity right now. So we haven't yet hit that stage where people are trying to outdo each other with just higher prices. It's more just maybe people sticking within a budget, but then moving further away from the city or relocating or whatever it might be. But it is really tough out there, really tough.
And in Portugal, we just happened to be very lucky in that we bought our apartment in 2019. So this was before that skyrocketing really started. And when I say which do you choose, I'm really just choosing the easy way that we have an apartment here. We don't have to do that work. We don't have to get into that race. And it feels much easier. I'm
really grateful we're lucky to not have to worry about that for now.
So Portugal is your choice as well?
Absolutely, absolutely.
All right, next up, transportation. And this one we actually really struggled in the UK. Why does it take a full hour to get from anywhere around London to anywhere else around London? It seemed like no matter where we were and no matter where we were trying to go, it was going to be an hour.
It's such a pain in the butt. Really, it is. It's like one of those things that's just so frustrating because you can see on a map how close you are to your friend's house. In our case, it was 2.5 kilometers away from Ryan Brock, a friend of ours who was on the podcast a few weeks ago. 2.5 kilometers will take an hour to get to on public transport. Or you can take an hour to walk that distance because of the way everything is designed. Or you can drive, which will still take you half an hour to get those 2.5 kilometers. And you have to do that with everything. This is not just visiting your friend. And the intensity of it is actually caused such an impact on the way people are living, even just in terms of how often they see and spend time with friends and family, where someone might live very nearby to you, but you never see them because of the amount of effort that's required to actually get there. It's crazy.
And next up is the price of those trains and the price of public transportation, which really seemed extreme to me.
No, it was unbelievable. I did the Belfast to London trip, and it was cheaper and faster to get from one country to another than it was to get from the airport to the city in London. And I just don't understand how people are managing with that, because for me, in that scenario, it was more a tourist work kind of thing. But for people who are like full on, I need to get to the city to do my job every day to earn a living so that I can eat and be clothed, I don't know how people are managing paying the prices for these trains. It's just too much. And I don't know how often I've ever seen things roll back. You just don't see things getting cheaper.
Yeah, prices are never going down.
So I don't know how people are managing. One of the things that really always blows me away is that when we go to a new travel location, you sometimes get overwhelmed by culture shock. You walk out of the airport, the weather is different, the food is different, people look differently, they're speaking a different language, everything's just different. And you get that I love the cultural explosion in your face. But to get the same thing in London, in UK, is really weird, of standing there and saying, this is too much for me, I think. I don't know what to do with this information or how to operate here, because this is so different. Reaching into your pocket and taking out £40 to travel 20 kilometers on a train, I don't know if I have it in me to do that more than the one time that I did.
And the traffic on the roads means that you might never get there. We were driving once between England and Wales and were stopped in an accident for 3 hours. There was another time where we were just sitting, going from one place in London to another that was supposed to be a 15-minute drive, and it took us over an hour. And outside of the bigger cities, we were stuck on these really tiny roads that had tons of curves, and people were going so fast.
Well, I would agree, but I will also say this. I think maybe let me throw in something positive here, is that I felt as though, in general, the driving etiquette and habits were actually quite good. They were significantly better than they are here. We'll get to Portuguese driving in a second, but they really did generally stick to the rules of the road. People understood how traffic circles worked.
Yeah.
People didn't really blow through traffic lights. They respect pedestrian crossings. Those kinds of things actually were really nice to see, and it really it made life a lot better for me as a driver, not needing to worry about safety as much as I need to here. Credit to the UK and the UK drivers for that. What about Ubers, Liz?
Yeah, I think the price of Ubers in the UK made them impossible for us. The fact that we were looking at options of how to get somewhere. So like Ryan was saying, a 2.5 kilometer trip, which became an hour walk because of the way you had to go around this and around that, or an hour on a train. We were like, okay, it's only a 20-30 minute drive, but there's no parking and I really would rather not drive. How much is the Uber? Oh, it's £70. £70 for a 20-minute drive is just, for me, it's not possible. And I'm never going to be able to say, okay, let's do it.
I think it's sad to know that that's the situation, because I always view Uber as being your last option to get somewhere. So you've considered driving, you've thought about public transport, you've looked into getting a lift with a mate, you've looked at walking, whatever it might be. And all of those things are impossible, so you need to catch an Uber. You accept the fact that you're going to need to pay more than you're comfortable with, but you can get into that car and you're going to get to where you're going to go. But to pay £70
it was too much
to get to some place that's just a few kilometers away means that it's not really an option.
Tell us about Portugal, Ryan.
Portugal has the worst drivers in the whole world ever. Full stop. Forever.
This is Ryan's opinion.
No, but really, the driving out here is abysmal. It's not down to me just people don't respect the laws of the road. There's just a lot of carelessness. There's a lot of selfishness. There's a lot of aggression. There's a lack of knowledge of how the roads are actually supposed to work. There's a very much a lack of respect for other people in terms of stopping in the middle of the road, reversing on highways, parking over 3 spaces, not stopping at pedestrian crossings. We've got so many issues with people getting run over on pedestrian crossings. It's really not nice. And usually I have a good laugh complaining about it. But if I'm honest, I think it's actually quite a bad thing, because there are so many amazing things about Portugal, which I could never deny. But being on the road here is often a very dangerous thing. You have to be careful. I would never advise anyone to ever ride a motorcycle out here. It's too dangerous. Be very careful about driving at night time. There's just so many things to be worried about. So, like I had said a second ago, very impressed so much in general. I mean, we spent 3 months there. We hardly had any issues with like poor driving standards in the UK. I think I probably saw more crazy stuff happen in the last 2 or 3 days that we've been back than I have for the 3 months before when we were in the UK.
Wow.
So really credit to the UK, really Portugal. This is something that we can improve, that we can work on, even if it's just by more law enforcement, just sort of monitoring people. And it's not about giving people fines. It's not about throwing people into jail. It's about creating a safe road environment for us all to live on, and that's a big deal. So I'm any chance I get to talk about how tough it is to drive out here, I'm going to take it, because we have friends out here who actually flat out refuse to drive because it's too much, and I don't like it, and I will do so much to promote this country on so many different levels. The driving is terrible.
But that said, the public transportation is really efficient and affordable here. I think we know for sure in Lisbon, I'm not sure about the other cities, but in Lisbon, there's a €40 all you can travel pass that you can get per month. And that includes Setúbal, which is almost an hour away on the train. It includes Sintra, which is an hour away on the train in another direction. And it really does encompass quite a large area. And it's all of your trains, all of your buses, all of your ferries. It's everything as many times as you want to use them for a whole month for €40.
Yeah.
And I really think that is such a way for people to be able to get around and not have to worry so much about driving. It really incentivizes taking the train instead of taking a car.
Yeah, no, I agree, absolutely. I think it's really nice that they've got that. I think it really makes such a big difference to so many people's lives. I don't want to pretend as though €40 isn't a lot of money, but for the €40, being able to know that you can get anywhere you want to get to for a full month.
Yeah.
Is really a good thing. And then I'll also extend that appreciation and that respect to the powers that be who put that in place, because I think that that's something that's so friendly towards people.
Yeah.
It's something that really makes people feel valued and understands that everyone, I think, almost has the right to be able to move around, and to be able to offer that to people, I think, is a really good thing for a government to do for its people. So absolutely very cool thing to have.
Yeah, and then I would say Uber also feels like a lot more of an option here than it did in the UK. So when my dad came out to visit, he's over 70, and I didn't want him walking uphill that often. I didn't want him walking as far. We don't want to stress him more than we need to. And Ubers around Setúbal were about €3.
Yeah.
And it really felt like a true option to be able to say, you know what? Let's not walk up that hill.
Yeah.
Let's spend €3 and we'll take an Uber up that hill, and then you don't have to worry about it. And I think that really is something that I didn't appreciate so much until I went to London and saw the prices. All right, Ryan, transportation, UK versus Portugal. What are you choosing?
Yeah, despite the difficulties on the road, I think that in most cases, for most people, most of the time, Portugal's a better place to be able to move around in. That's my thought.
I agree completely. All right, next up, weather. everyone knows the UK is not known for weather, but it never gets too hot. And the summer is actually really nice. It does have 4 full seasons where you feel the season changing and there are those emotions that kind of get stirred up. And I have to say, nothing stops when the weather is bad. That in the UK, if it happens to be raining, whatever you were going to do, you're still going to be doing it. And I think that there's something kind of nice about that, to know that nothing's really going to be rescheduled due to weather.
Yeah, I think they're adequately prepared in thought process and in expectation and in practicality about the fact that it's going to rain a significant amount every year. So there's never really any reason to say, well, we're not doing this because it's raining. You've just got to go on ahead and get it done, and people are okay with that. And I think that's really cool, because it means that things aren't going to get washed out, so you can rely on things actually happening. The other thing that I will say about the weather in the UK, especially in Northern Ireland, because they get such a bad rap for the weather out there, especially, and I don't think that it's necessarily warranted, in my personal opinion, because it's true that it might potentially possibly rain every day, but it's hardly ever the whole day.
Yeah.
So you'll go outside and it'll rain even hard on you for maybe an hour. But then after that hour's over, like, you can go out and do whatever it is that you want to go and do. Admittedly, there might be crazy wind for an hour or two, or it might be very cloudy and doomy and gloomy for another hour, and then you'll have an hour of glorious sunshine. So it's just like more mixed up, rather than it being constantly rainy and wet and doomy and gloomy.
And I think this is something where the privilege that we have, that we both work online, can really come in handy to appreciate the weather. Because if I was in an office and all of the nice hours were when I was in that office, then I probably wouldn't be as excited that the rain was only for this shorter period during the day, because maybe that's the only time that I'm actually able to be outside, versus you and I are able to go outside when it's nice. And I can spend those 2 hours enjoying the weather, and then maybe work 2 hours later that day in order to make up for it. And I can really use that flexibility to have the whole day worth of weather to enjoy, versus I think most people don't have that.
Yeah, I think definitely. I mean, it's going to be impossible for us to separate the fact that there's some things that we get to enjoy because of privilege, and there are other things, I guess, which we don't get to enjoy because our lifestyles are very different. So, there's ifs and buts, I guess, for everything. What about Portugal, Liz?
Yeah, so Portugal is known for great weather. There's a lot of sun. We generally do have very sunny, dry weather. Summer, personally, I think gets too hot, where it becomes difficult to do some of the things we love. For example, Henry, our dog, will not walk during the day in the summer. Basically, he's inside from 11 a.m. until sunset because it's just too hot. The ground is too hot for his paws, and he doesn't enjoy being outside in temperatures that are over 30 degrees Celsius, 90 degrees Fahrenheit. He just doesn't want to be doing it. We also play a lot of paddle, and a paddle game in 30 degrees Celsius, 90 degree Fahrenheit weather is not fun.
No, you're not enjoying yourself in something like that. And I think I will say this, for people who might consider Portugal as a place to live, the weather is great. I think objectively it's great, sort of on a meteorological level. It's been proven to be one of the sunniest places in the world. We get, I would say, 6 weeks in the course of a year where it's cold and uncomfortable and not fun.
Yeah.
And then I reckon there's probably about 6 weeks where it's too hot and life is not fun. You're thirsty, you're struggling, like it's not nice.
Yep.
So other than those 3 months, the weather here is actually pretty amazing.
It's true. 9 months a year, I think the weather here is basically perfect.
Yeah. So, that's something that really makes a big difference. And it's part of actually what it is that I've felt since we've gotten back from the UK. I think it's really interesting because, we've only been back for a few days, and I hadn't realized how much of an impact it's got on me to see blue sky for multiple hours every day.
Everything's just so bright.
Everything's so bright and everything's so colorful because it's bathed in sunlight. And I didn't really realize how nice that was until I actually took a break from it being in the UK. So, big ups to Portugal for giving us that gift.
But I will say about Portugal, when the weather is bad, everything stops. And if it is raining just a little bit, no one is doing anything. If you're meant to meet a group of 5 people for lunch and it starts raining, you are going to get 5 cancellations or they just don't show up because it's raining.
Yeah, there's an assumption that it's not happening because it's raining. We don't even need to confirm. You just know that there were like 5 raindrops that fell this morning at 10 o'clock and you've got an appointment at 7 p.m. People are like, no, dude, it's pouring out. It's dangerous. We're not going anywhere. So just, let it go.
All right, Ryan. So what do you choose? Weather, UK or Portugal?
I would choose Portugal. I think Portugal's got better weather. I don't think anyone needs to take anything personally. I think the British people would be like, yes, Portugal's got better weather too. So it's fine. You?
Yeah, I'm also choosing Portugal for weather. All right, next up, making friends.
Well, this is such a big one. This is so deep.
So tell us about the UK.
The UK feels like life on easy mode to a large extent for me. And I think so much of it is linked to language for me. Being able to express yourself in your home country's language, your mother tongue, means that you can talk about things in tones and in words that really are so much closer to the feelings that you've got. And then when you're talking that way to someone else, they're able to pick up on that and make the connection between your words and who you are as a person. And it might not necessarily end up with you guys becoming best friends, but you've had meaningful and real communication, which is something that I really miss living in Portugal, where Portuguese is the number 1 language. So being in the UK and having the opportunity to interact with people on a day-to-day basis on that level really goes a long way for me in feeling as though I'm part of the environment that I happen to be in. And I struggle without having that in Portugal. It's one of the things that motivated our trip to go to the UK, because I feel lonely here a lot of the time because I don't have that many. I have people, wonderful people, but I don't have as many people as I used to have who I can talk to the way that I'm used to talking to people. What was it like for you?
Yeah, I think the same, that it's really easy to just walk into a place and start a casual conversation. And I think that people are generally quite open, and even just eavesdropping on other conversations seemed like easy mode in a lot of ways. And it really did feel like this could be a place where it was easier to make connections. But that being said, with the transportation issue, it really feels like even if you make those connections, it's really difficult to see your people on a regular basis.
I don't feel it's necessary. If I'm honest with you, if I'm having 5 conversations over the course of the day, which admittedly aren't deep and meaningful and intimate, but enough for me to feel as though I shared a part of myself with someone today, someone else had the opportunity to talk to me for real, I honestly feel as though I don't desperately need that best friend time as much as I used to. If I get none of these things, then I'm desperate for my friends. I'm thinking, oh gosh, I wish I could spend time with XYZ so that I could talk to them about how I feel. Whereas if I'm sharing a little bit about how I feel to the lady at the Tesco, and I'm sharing a little bit about how I feel to the barista at the coffee shop, and a little bit to the guy at the tire shop, you know what I'm saying? Like bits and pieces, that ends up being enough for me to feel as though I was myself and I shared and I was part of someone else's life too. And therefore I still need my closest friends, but it really doesn't make that much of an impact on me as perhaps I thought it would.
That's interesting. I feel the opposite.
Sure.
I feel like those little interactions don't give me what I need nearly as much, and that I actually do need more time of real time with friends where you're talking more deeply. And I don't feel like those small interactions are filling that cup for me.
Well, then can I ask you a question? Here, living in Portugal, where you're having those small interactions, right, just on day-to-day life, but then even in those small interactions, you aren't necessarily making close connections with random people because it's even further because the language is off. Mm-hmm. So you speak Portuguese quite well, but even that Portuguese isn't necessarily emotional. So do you feel though as then you now need even more time with close friends?
Maybe. And I think that the close friends that I have here, I generally speak English with. Even my close Portuguese friends, when we're sharing and talking deeply, it'll generally be in English, even though obviously they speak Portuguese as their native language and mine, like you said, it's okay. But I do think that an hour walk with a friend where we're actually talking and sharing does more for me than 3 weeks of these small interactions in cafes and stuff. So I just need to plan those deeper talks and catch ups with friends, which I think is something that I'm able to do here after years of not really having it. And now I know that I need it. I'm able to schedule that into my week much better.
Nice. Well, I'm glad you've got a way of dealing with it so that you get the things that you need. Ultimately, at the end of the day, if you're getting that and you're feeling happy and comfortable, that's really all that matters. I think that's the thing, though, is that it ends up becoming a bit more complicated and a little bit more deliberate in figuring out how to actually get through this. And I find that in the UK, I don't need to work as hard to get what it is that I need.
Another thing about the UK, I have to say, is that there's a lot more people who look like Ryan.
Oh, it's so nice.
And
it's
a lot
so
more
nice.
Mixed couples that look like Ryan and I together. And I think that you stand out less and we stand out less.
Yeah. I generally feel a lot less, I don't know, separate from society over there than I do here. I think people are a lot more comfortable with dealing with someone with my color skin in the UK than they are here. I remember we were at a farmer's market in Chester. It wasn't a farmer's market, it was just a general market in Chester, and I ordered some very spicy Thai noodles, and I had the Thai noodles in my hand and I was walking back out the restaurant where there was a giant line, and 2 people stopped me to say, hey, hang on, I want to have a look at your food to see if that's what I should order. And I was so taken aback because they didn't view me as being threatening or weird or foreign or dirty, which is a lot of how people treat me here, if I'm honest. And it took me like a second to think, oh, these people actually want to have a friendly interaction with me, and they're strangers
because they think you're normal.
Because I think that I'm normal. They don't look at me as being someone who is in a place that I shouldn't be. And I was able to actually sort of have this conversation with them around like, well, this is what I ordered. This is the protein I chose. This is how spicy I think it is, which is not something I really get in other places. And it is what it is. I think it's sometimes tough for people to broach this subject, but I think it's about accepting the fact that that's the difference between countries, you know? So I really enjoyed that.
And one more thing in the UK is that we heard laughter a lot more.
Man, laughing isn't something that every society does. It's not something that every culture prioritizes. I'm from Africa, and laughing is such an important part of life. I don't remember going through days where, even if I was having a tough day and I didn't laugh, I know that everyone around me realized the fact that being alive means laughing. So you walk through the mall, you're going to see 5 people having 5 different conversations and laughing. Whereas in Portugal, it's not one of those societies. They're not into loud laughter and expression.
I feel like the UK was definitely in the middle.
Yes.
Not nearly as loud and expressive as South Africa, but also a little bit louder and more expressive than Portugal.
Absolutely. Being jolly, being the jokey guy, looking for something to laugh to.
And in Northern Ireland, I think especially.
Oh, they enjoy a laugh. It's so important. I had a great time in the hospital.
Yeah.
I laughed more in the hospital getting my appendix removed than I might have laughed in Portugal for a year. It's just a different society. And I often try to remind people in Portugal that in South Africa and other places, I'm actually quite funny. But the second I get through the borders here, man, my jokes have no power.
And it's a language thing too.
Of course.
That I think when you're speaking another language, you're definitely different. Your personality might be a bit different. And I'm not funny in Portuguese at all.
I mean, even in South African languages other than English, I'm not funny.
Yeah.
Like my Afrikaans humor and jokes just don't exist. So, and so when I say that, I really don't want it to sound as if it's any kind of criticism. It's just accepting the fact that there's different societies that value different things. This wouldn't be the only culture where laughter isn't a massive part of how we live. Yeah. So it's just a comparison to the UK.
All right, so let's talk about Portugal. I think it takes longer to make friends here, but I do think that there's more of a sense of community once you're in. And I think that once you've made friends in Portugal, they really do hold you in this community. And I feel like people really look out for each other quite well here.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. It's definitely a small town kind of thinking way of living. And so there's the negative side of small town living, but then there's also the positive side of it where people know each other. Yeah. They understand how each other work. They know your lifestyle. They care about your role in the community. They understand where you're from and what you bring to the table. And it really means a lot. We've got neighbors down here who know what our movements are like. And if our movements are not regular, they'll check in to say, oh, so you guys have you been on a trip or something? Yeah. Are you going somewhere, so that we can keep an eye on your place? Or if we've got a wonderful old man that lives across the road from us here. And if he doesn't come out and sit in the sun very regularly, people kind of say, oh, well, is he okay? Someone will check in on him. So those are very important kinds of things. And I would agree with you absolutely. Living in a smaller community with smaller community values and feeling as though I'm part of something is really a nice feeling. And I'm really grateful for that. Like, our pharmacists know what illnesses I've got. The supermarket across the road knows that my favorite type of apple juice is the cloudy one. Those kinds of things actually make you feel a lot more at home.
I also love that you run into people all of the time.
Yeah.
So our very first day back, we needed to stop at the mall to get something. And within 5 minutes, we saw 2 people that we know.
Yeah. No, it's really nice being able to like bump into people and catch up and find out how things are going and be able to just interact that way. Really makes a big difference to a place feeling like home.
Yeah.
And maybe if we were to spend more time in the UK, we would get the same thing. But I will say that it strikes me as being something that is very special to Portuguese culture, where if you are able to get into the community, you put in the work, you put in the time, you make the effort, you really do get to enjoy a certain level of care and belonging, which I think a lot of people might be missing out on because they don't know that it's there for them if they make the effort to integrate.
So this is going to be a very difficult question, and it's not about your individual friends in either place. It's just a question of, if you were starting fresh and you knew no one in either country, would you choose to make friends in the UK or in Portugal?
In the UK. It's me saying that I choose the UK doesn't mean that Portugal is the worst and this is a terrible thing. It's just saying that I know that I'm more of myself in the UK because I'm able to actually freely express myself and be who I am. And I think that's a very important thing. In Portugal, I can really only be myself to a certain extent because that's what the environment offers me.
And how much do you think race goes into that equation for you?
I don't know. I think it varies. I think it depends on where you are in Portugal, at what time, with whom, doing what. I think one of the things that you would definitely have seen is 90% of the time that we go to any event, I might be the only non-white person there.
In Portugal, for sure. But in the UK, it felt like there were brown and black people everywhere.
Exactly. And being in these spaces where I am the only person of color for as far as the eye can see is sometimes uncomfortable at the very least. And it doesn't necessarily mean that people are being ugly to me while I'm being brown in their space. It's just also understanding that in a very real sense with your own two eyeballs, that one of these things is not like the other.
Yeah.
And that thing is me. And in the UK, I don't feel that. And in the UK, I'm able to actually talk about how I feel and what I think. And my opinion isn't needing to go through a ridiculous number of filters so that people can understand it. It's just a man saying what he thinks and what he feels, or sharing, or having a conversation. We went to get one of our tires repaired in a place in Northern Ireland, and I ended up making a friend there, which is not something that ever happens here because just the language doesn't allow for it. And it's not even just the language, I have to be honest, is that I don't have the confidence when I'm here. I don't have the confidence to start a random conversation with another dude at the tire place. I don't have the confidence to talk about the weather to the barista. And maybe if I had the confidence, things would be different. But I don't know if my Portuguese is ever going to get good enough for me to feel confident enough to speak that way. Nor do I really see, at least for a very long time, people here feeling comfortable enough talking to this brown guy. A bit of a rant, not even a rant, but a bit of a confession here. But that it is quite difficult because most people here expect me to work in a kitchen. Most people here expect me to be an Uber Eats delivery guy.
Yeah.
Most people here, even if they are being kind, expect me to work in IT and be deployed from India to fix some international company's computers.
There's just so many assumptions that are made about who you are. And I think that in the UK, you're just another human because there's so many people that look like you.
Exactly. The stereotype is more diluted in the UK than it is here. And so needing to live within those pre-established ideas of who you're supposed to be is kind of exhausting at times. And so when I get the opportunity to go and actually truly be myself, I go and do that. So that's my long-winded answer of what I would choose. What would you choose?
Yeah, I mean, I do just want to say that you also seemed lighter to me as an outside perspective. It looked like you were more confident. It looked like you felt lighter. It looked like it was easier for you to make those connections. And I think I didn't feel it as extreme as you did, but I also did feel that it was easier to make those connections and to crack a little joke while online at the supermarket and to have those smaller, easier interactions throughout the day. And like I'm saying, those aren't the things that I crave, that I need in friendships, but I do think that they are an easier way to make those friends. Yeah. So starting over, if I didn't know anyone in either country, I definitely do think that the UK would be more of an easy mode for making new friends.
But I think the other thing that jumps out to me when you say that, which are really good points, is that you don't need every person to be your best friend. I think for a healthy and holistically fulfilling life, you need to have different people at different levels of friendship and intimacy in your life. So you're my wife and you're my best friend and you get to see and know pretty much everything in my life, right? And then I've got other people who I would consider my best friends who are there just to a slightly smaller extent because we just don't spend that much time together. And then it cascades down, till eventually the checkout lady at the supermarket across the road, and she knows my favorite lunchtime food. And that's all we really need. But if you've got all of those set up nicely and you're interacting with all of those people with the regularity and with the intimacy that you should be doing, you feel as if you're part of a bigger world that's supporting you and engaging with you.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing, is that being able to take care of that whole chain is an important part of life. And I feel like here, it's patchy. So there's little clumps here, there's bits and pieces there. Whereas I feel like in South Africa and in the UK and even to the United States to a large extent, you're able to connect on a more complete chain. And anyway, guys, it was really good to share this with you and to have this discussion. As always, these are just our opinions and our feelings. We know that there's so much more to this that so many other people have seen and experienced, and we'd love to hear from you. If you've got anything that you want to share or any experience that you've had that you want to share with us, please. We are on Instagram at expatslisten, or you can send us an email on expatslisten@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. You're most welcome. And until we chat again next, have a good week. Goodbye.